Hey guys, welcome to Farm Charm Chic. I'm Emily. I am so glad you are here with me today because I am doing DIYs after one of my favorite Christmas songs. It's part of a collaboration with some really amazing other YouTubers, and I will tell you more about that in a moment. But if you have a chance to subscribe, I would love if you would consider doing so. And as always, give this video a thumbs up if you like what you see. But let's get started. The song I chose for my inspiration for today's DIYs is the Christmas song, The Holly and the Ivy. So let's go and do some DIYs using this as our inspiration. I found this cute little planter box. It's just a little wooden box at the thrift store, and I've seen these there on several occasions. So if you ever find them, pick them up because they're usually pretty inexpensive, and I just feel like there is so much versatility with them. So I'm just taking a stencil from the Dollar Tree and I'm going to stencil onto the front a little sign or saying, I'm just putting Holly and Ivy Company or Holly and Ivy Co. on here in these stenciled letters. Maybe just to kind of give it like a shipping container type of vibe, or I don't know. I just thought it was really cute and really rustic. And since I'm going for everything themed after the Holly and the Ivy in this particular video, I thought that would be really cute to put on the front of this box. As a tip while I'm stenciling, I'm putting some painter's tape over the letters next to the letter that I'm stenciling. So if I happen to go over, I'm not going to have anything come through the other letters. So just keep that in mind when you're stenciling. These Dollar Tree stencils actually work really well. And I just used one of the Dollar Tree stencil brushes, but I did trim off the bristles a little bit so it was a little bit more flat. And then of course, we know that I love to distress everything. So I'm just making this look a little bit more aged here. I really liked how this looked. I just used my emery board, or use your finger sander, sandpaper, whatever it is that you use. And then I just go over it with a baby wipe to kind of clean all of that dust off. And I just really, really like that vintage look that it has. I bought a package of these styrofoam balls at Hobby Lobby, so I'm just going to use those, but any shape or type of styrofoam that you have that will fit down into your box will work just fine. I'm taking one of the jumbo picks of holly from Hobby Lobby that I purchased. You can definitely use Dollar Tree holly if you have that or can find that. I am just cutting it up into little picks here, like little mini picks, and I'm just sticking it into the top portion of this styrofoam ball. And you just want to make sure when you place it down inside your planter that it sits down in far enough that you're not going to be able to see the bottom portion of your styrofoam. Now I noticed when you stick it in there, you can kind of see through the leaves there. You can still see the white of that styrofoam ball. I'm just using some hot glue and some moss, and I'll just put the hot glue in and stick the moss down in just to kind of cover that, so that way that white is not what is peeking through. You see the moss instead. This Dollar Tree candle riser fits in my little crate perfectly, but I do need to cut some of the bottom of my styrofoam off to make sure that that is not peeking out. So I just take some of my scissors and rip a little bit of that off on the bottom. And then I just use some hot glue on top just to make sure, I mean, it will sit on this just fine, but so it doesn't like blow over or anything like that if somebody was to walk by it. I'm just using some hot glue to secure it. I felt like this could use a little bit more red, so I'm just taking some extra berry picks and just sticking those sporadically in all around. Now I realize that the song, The Holly and the Ivy, is not the most popular Christmas song, but I have found that a lot of people actually know the melody of the song. They just don't realize that that's what it is. But it is a really beautiful song that takes the holly plant and it translates it kind of into Christmas Day and the birth of Christ in a very beautiful way. But what do you think of this planter box? I think this turned out so cute. I'm going to make a reindeer crossing sign, and I'm going to use this little ornament sign from Dollar Tree. So I'll just remove this top metal portion that I don't need. And I'm using this little wood round that I have to kind of finish off and trace that perfect circular shape so I can cut the top of this sign off. Now the reason I didn't just use that wood round was because it is kind of warped, and I do want this to have a very flat shape to it. So I'm just going to paint this with 2 or 3 coats of red paint. You can do this in whatever color matches your decor the best. And I will leave a link to this graphic down in my description box. But I just found this on Etsy and I thought it was so darling, and I loved the font that it was in and the little name of all the reindeer around the edges. I thought it was so cute. And the holly and the ivy in the chorus, it does talk about the running of the deer. And I thought, what could be cuter than the running of the deer than to have a reindeer crossing sign to go with it. Now this part would be completely optional, but I like to make everything a little bit more farmhouse. So I do go out into my garage and just cut a few pieces of the salvaged barnwood that we have from one of our barns that we tore down. And I'm just going to make a background for this sign to go against. And to keep all of these pieces together to connect them, I'm just cutting a painter stick here in half that I will use as my piece to hold all of the background together. So you'll kind of see what I do with that here. And then, of course, since it's barnwood, I've got to brush it off and make sure that there's nothing gross on it or anything. So I have these pieces and I just measured them with my sign on the top of it to see how big I wanted to cut it and how much I wanted showing through. Right now, I am just trying to decide if I want like the rougher, more rustic side to show or the smoother side to show. So it's whatever is, preference on this one. Again, this is just absolutely optional. You could easily, if you want to do the whole process I'm doing, do a canvas or do any type of bigger sign that you have and do whatever kind of finish on that you would like. You don't have to have barnwood to do this part. So I'm just using some wood glue on these painter sticks to hold these together, and I quickly realized after I glue this down that this is not exactly how I needed to do this because I need to be able to clamp this down onto the wood, and so I have to move it up a little bit to the edge because these clamps that I have right here were not working for how I wanted to do it. And I decided for a little bit of security to put some wood glue on the inside of my slats. So definitely follow this process I'm doing right here. And then when I place down my cross piece of wood at the top, I put it close enough to the top that I can just use some little, I'm not even sure what type of clamps these are called, just some like hand clamps maybe, just to kind of clip that onto it because that would give it the best hold. And I just let that dry completely, and I'm showing you here like I'm hitting this pretty hard and it is not coming apart. You definitely could use some staples or anything in there that you would like to, but I just had the wood glue, so that's what I went with. This sign looks so cute with that barnwood in the background. So again, you could even stop here and just leave it like that because that definitely looks cute. But I am using a piece of styrofoam in the back of this sign, and I'm cutting a bunch of different types of Christmas picks. I got some from Hobby Lobby. It's a mixture of that and Dollar Tree picks. So whatever you have, of course, since I'm going with the holly and the ivy theme, I thought it would be fun to use a lot of holly throughout it. And I did realize the bottom of the barnwood there is not, it's not finished like where I cut it. It's kind of that raw wood. So I'm using antiquing wax on there, and it's the exact color of the barnwood. So you can't get much more farmhouse than that. So I will just glue the styrofoam piece into the center there, and I decide that I want to use some E6000 and stick that on there, and then I just hold it until it stays. But you can see how I just go through and I'll place just sporadically how it looks pleasing to my eye is how I go through and place all of these little picks in here all the way around. I just love these little crystal icicle-y looking branches that came from Dollar Tree, and so I just put these on all of my corners. Actually, I think I put a little bit more than all of the corners, but I just love how these look, and I thought they looked so pretty kind of since they were hanging over the edges more. They just brought a little bit of sparkle into it, which sometimes when you're doing farmhouse and barnwood and stuff, it's fun to have a little bit of sparkle like that, kind of glams it up a bit. But I'm just using some E6000 and some hot glue for that long and short-term hold here on the styrofoam. And since hot glue sometimes doesn't work the best with styrofoam, you want to just make sure that you hold this sign down to make sure that it stays. And so I just kind of hold it for a little bit. But look at how cute this is looking. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm taking just some antiquing wax that's left on my brush from when I stained the raw part of the wood, and I just go around the edge to give it a little definition and then just brush it over the top. What it does is kind of make those letters pop a little bit more. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but it definitely made a big difference in person. Right, what do you guys think? Did I do a good job with this one? I am so excited about it. I think it turned out beautifully. You can also add like a hanger on the back if you want to hang it. I am so excited and so honored really to be a part of this collaboration with these amazing DIYers. It's hosted by Nadia with DIY with Nadia and Leanie from Crafty Leanie. And also participating today is Liz Moore, Decal and Decor, Blondie Next Door, According to Kat, and Glue La La. They each have chosen a Christmas song to do all of their DIYs themed after. And if you remember, mine are all themed after the holly and the ivy today. There will be a link to the playlist down in the description box below, so make sure you check out everybody else's song and their DIYs that they did. So I have this little snow globe from Dollar Tree and also an ornament that I found at Walmart that I absolutely loved that has a nativity on it, and by a happy coincidence it fits perfectly with the snow globe. So I just removed the design that was on the snow globe because I wanted it to be so you could see the front and the back and not have to worry about that. So I did just take that little paper design on there. Now this ornament is double-sided, so I am going to use both sides of it for two different DIYs today. So it took just a little bit of prying with my putty knife, but it did pop right off. So I will paint my snow globe completely white, and I believe I painted all over white. So really you probably don't have to take that paper design off, but it makes it so it won't like bubble up or anything like that. The paper won't get wrinkly, if that makes sense at all. And then I take some, and I use my sandpaper just to kind of smooth the paint because I wanted it to have not just be really smooth. And just with some hot glue, I put that little nativity scene on there. Like I said, it just fits so perfect. I did decide it needed something around the edge to finish it off, so I am just using a little bit of hot glue, and this is sped up quite a bit, so I really did take my time with this. But I would put just a little bead of hot glue and go around with my jute twine to kind of give that edge a little bit of something extra. After I finish the twine around the edge, I do wrap about 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, I don't know, quite a few little layers there just around the bottom. I thought that added a little bit more texture to the bottom and tied in the twine around the edge of the nativity scene. After I tie this off, I look at it and think it needs a little bit more substantial of a bow there. So I just wrap the twine around my fingers 3 or 4 times to make more loops. I thought that looked a little bit better. And then I'll just tie that off in the middle with another piece of twine. And then using some hot glue, I will just stick it over that knot. And then the little tails that come off the bow, I'll just cut those off, and those will serve as my tails. The song, The Holly and the Ivy, does talk about Christmas Day and the birth of Christ quite a bit, and so I thought a nativity was perfect. So I love that this ties that in. I also felt like it could use a little bit of color, and so I have these darling little pieces of holly from Hobby Lobby. It was a couple of dollars for this whole sheet of them, and so I just took one of them off and just glued it like it was coming out of the bow there. I thought that added such a beautiful little touch to it, a little bit of color, and also for me just a nice little reminder of the correlation between the holly plant and Christmas Day, the birth of Christ. I absolutely love how this turned out. I think it is so simple and so elegant. What do you guys think of this one? I found a graphic of the sheet music for Holly and the Ivy. It's just the first verse on here, so I did print that out after sizing it to the size I wanted it. And now I am just going to tear the edges to kind of give this a very aged look. So when I go to the edge, and this is very sped up, but I did just kind of go back and forth to give it a really weathered and aged look on it. And I do this to all 4 sides. And then I take this piece of paper and just crumple it up like it's trash. And then we just open it back up. This adds lots of fun little wrinkles and things in there. And I have this little scrapbook, like aging kit for paper. I've seen them at Hobby Lobby. I got this at Joann's, but it comes with a bunch of different colors, and you can even buy additional colors. And there's lots of different techniques that it kind of explains to you in there on how to age paper and make things look really old and weathered. So I'm just doing kind of a bunch of different techniques here, if you even want to call it a technique. I really just kind of was rubbing the ink and the dye and everything on the paper. You can see how all of those little wrinkles picks up that dye and really does make it look aged. I really am happy with how that came out. Now I found this little sign in kind of like the kids craft section of the Christmas section at Hobby Lobby, and I thought it would be a darling little sign to make over. So I'm just using this for this particular project, but use whatever you have that you want to do a little sign on. So I do just paint the base black and then the edges all black, and on that little finial on the top I go in with some antiquing wax. I really like the contrast of that with the black. I thought it just looked really nice together with the whole theme that I was going with here. And there's also a little wood piece down at the bottom between the sign and the base, and I just stain that with the same antiquing wax to kind of tie it in. Now I paint kind of a little bit over the edge where my sheet music and the scrapbook paper I use will go, so that way a little bit of the black will peek out, but I don't need to do the full center because that's where my paper will be. Hopefully that makes sense. On the back side I did just completely paint it black. You could easily make another sign on the back side of this, so it could be two-sided or even do like chalkboard something on the back. But on the front side of this that I'm doing, I just found this plaid paper out of some Christmas plaids that I had and cut it to be just a little bit less than the size of the sign. So that way you can kind of see that black through there. And I just used some good old purple school glue, just that little glue stick glue to put that down with. And then I do the same thing on the sheet music here and just place that on top of the plaid paper. So I'm going to use these little holly embellishments along with this cute bow that I made, but of course I must have felt it wasn't important to hit record on my camera while I made the bow, so I'm just showing you that I took the ribbon, made a ring with it, and then pinched it in the middle and then tied that off, and that is how I made this cute little bow. And then I'm just going to use some hot glue to glue it to the top there, and then I had some little tails on it that I thought would be really cute. To kind of glue those to the side so that way they wouldn't fall down over the sheet music. It kind of gives them just a little bit of placement. Hopefully that makes sense. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. So I glue those little holly leaves and berries up just underneath that bow peeking down. Now, as you can see, you can't see the title of the music where it says the holly and the ivy at all. I know it's there, you know it's there, but you could do this with any sheet music that you had. Now I'm taking the second half of this nativity ornament that I have, and I just dry brushed it with a little bit of black to make it pop a little bit more against that music, and I just hot glue it onto the front. You would not have to do that step. I actually just, any way that I can add a little bit more Christ into my Christmas decorating, I absolutely love. I saw a lantern recently on Kirkland's website, and I thought it was absolutely beautiful, the shape of it, but I wanted to customize it a little bit more for my own home, and I thought I could also make it for much less. So I bought some square dowel pieces as well as another piece of lumber, and I just cut them down to the size of the lantern that I wanted to make, and then I just kind of sanded them all to smooth them all up. Now I realize I have only 4 little pieces there. You need 8 altogether. And so I have these 4 square dowels right here. These are going to make these corners and sides of my lantern. So you'll kind of see what I do here, because it is kind of hard for me to explain. But I'm taking the blocks of wood that I cut here, and I will glue them as a cross piece between 2 of these square dowels. So I'm just using, I do use a little bit of hot glue, but if you cannot do that and just use your clamps, I do recommend that. You'll get a much tighter seal. And I'll glue a piece at the bottom of these and a piece at the top. So you'll kind of see the shape that I end up with here. So you'll have 2 of these because you had 4 of those square dowels. So now you're going to attach these 2 together. So you'll take 4 more pieces of these block pieces of wood, and you're just going to glue them at the bottom as more cross pieces. So hopefully you can watch what I'm doing and this makes sense to you here, but I will just glue this onto, there's going to be 2 on the bottom on this side and then 2 on the top. So, and then I just put my wood glue on, and then I'll place that other piece right on the top. So this makes a totally 3-dimensional lantern shape. Hopefully you can see this coming together now. And I do just use my clamps to clamp it together until that is dry, and I can release those, and then you're left with that lantern shape. Now, I bought this wood sign at Hobby Lobby, and it's going to be my base, and that little hanging portion is just going to be at the bottom. No one's going to know it's there except for you and for me. And then I just put my wood glue around the edges and then place that right on top. So I took my measurements from the base, so I knew how wide to make my lantern. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So I stained the whole thing in antique wax because I want it to look very weathered. So I'm going to go in and dry brush this. So I'm showing you this piece right here in real time. I dip my brush in that white chalk paint and just kind of go over all of the edges. And then I'll speed it up a little bit here and just kind of show you that when there's like hardly any paint in my brush and I'm left on my little plate there, I just kind of go through and just dab it and smack it on and just kind of get that really weathered rustic look. In the base of this, I have glued a piece of styrofoam down. It's just floral foam that I had, but whatever type of styrofoam you have, you definitely can use that. I wanted to glue it down with hot glue just so this wouldn't be tipping over or if anybody was to knock into it. But since it is hot glue, I think I could easily take this block out if I want to reuse this for like year round or anything like that. I just took a couple of picks from Hobby Lobby as well as Dollar Tree picks, just whatever I had in my stash. And I did buy a couple specific for this and cut them into mini picks. And then just what was pleasing to my eye, I just stick them in all around. I have this little bag of wooden shapes that had this little circular like disc in it. So I glue this into the middle of the styrofoam, and you just want to make sure you hold it down until it dries. That is where my candle will go. It will also give me a frame of reference as I'm placing the picks in, so I know kind of where not to stick the picks as well as where to stick them. So, and then here is my candle, fits perfectly on there. This is coming together so well. I'm so excited about this. I just keep using all of the florals that I have. I go around if I need to remove some and move them to a different area. I do that. I just make sure that each side looks full and that it all looks fairly even, if that makes sense. And I just wanted it spilling over the edges. I thought that looked really pretty and everything. And so just what looks good to you and what looks best to you. But here it is completely finished. I am so excited about this. I cannot wait to use this in my holiday decor. Don't forget that I'm on Instagram also. I love to meet new Insta friends, so I would love for you to come over and say hi, check out my page, and see all the latest projects that I'm working on. I'll be sure and leave a link down in my description box so you can easily find me. I am so excited that I got to share all of these DIYs with you today and talk about my favorite Christmas song, The Holly and the Ivy. It was so fun making DIYs inspired by that song. I'm curious to know if you had to pick a Christmas song to inspire some DIYs, what song would you choose? So let me know down in the comments. Also, remember to click that link in my description box that will take you directly to the playlist for the collaboration where all of these other amazing DIYers picked a song and then did DIYs inspired by that song. It should be a lot of fun and you will definitely get some holiday decorating inspiration. I would like to thank Nadia and Leanie for hosting this collaboration. It truly has been so much fun. You guys, remember to be safe, be smart, be nice, be happy. Choose to have a good day because you are amazing. Happy holidays, everyone. If you enjoyed the video that you just saw, here's another one that you might enjoy. And as always, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching and have an amazing day.